Walking into the second weekend of the open beta, which is just about to close out now, we finally got our hands on the Necromancer, which means that we finally get to take a look at the Book of the Dead and how it works. So I wanted to detail everything that we know up until this point. Now, as will become obvious, there are 2 golems that we can't unlock yet, so I will be putting out a new video once we have those details and that information to be able to share. But at the very least, I wanted to set a concrete foundation and how to guide everything about the Necromancer specialization, the Book of the Dead. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So there are some things that go right into effect the moment that you make your first Necromancer. Starting at level 1, you already have access to the ability to raise skeleton. This is going to raise the level 1 skirmisher skeletons that you'll eventually see in your Book of the Dead, and it details right here what the skill does. So not only does it raise a skeleton, you're able to have 4 maximum at this point. Once all skeletons are summoned, you're also able to use the skill on a corpse, which will consume it, summoning a skeletal priest. This is going to heal all of your summons as well as increase their damage output. So it's going to increase their damage output by 20% and heal them all for 10% of their maximum life. The skill goes even further to already detail what the Skirmisher Warriors are. These are going to be skeletons that are going to deal 30% more damage than the base skeleton stats, which we're going to have to calibrate or calculate at some point, but they have 15% reduced life. And just to show you the skeletal healer or skeletal priest ability, we have some corpses right here. Let's go ahead and use the skill on them. There you go. It has this skeletal eruption that comes out with a keening wail. And again, it's going to increase their damage and heal them. Now at level 5, the actual Book of the Dead menu icon and UI is available. You'll notice here that in between character and abilities where the Book of the Dead should be, we don't currently have it. So let's go hit level 5 and then we'll take a look. So as you can see, we just hit level 5 and you'll notice that our class feature unlock pop-up occurs. And then if we were to go into our UI now, we can see the Book of the Dead. So 2 portions of the window here are going to be unlocked at later levels. I'm just going to log on to a higher level Necromancer so that you can see them. You will unlock the base Skeletal Mages at level 15, and you'll unlock the base Golem at level 25. I'll go into more details once we have the full book, but let's go ahead and just look at the Skeletal Warriors so we can get a little bit more intel here. We start off with the Skirmishers, so nothing new there. They still have the same stats, but they now have 2 unlock nodes as well as a sacrifice node. The first unlock node, which if you read the grayed out section below, which says upgrades, will indicate the nodes in order. You can raise an additional skirmisher, and that would be if we were to select this one right here. And then the second one would be each time you critically strike, your skirmisher's next attack will critically strike and also deal an additional 50% damage. But it has the caveat of this can only apply every 3 seconds, and that would be if you were to select the second orb here. If you didn't want to use your skeletons at all, you could even go ahead and sacrifice them. At this point, you would gain 5% chance to critically strike by sacrificing them. And if we were to do that, you'll notice that the skill is removed from our skill bar down below. Now, I saw a lot of people running into some issues here, and I just want to very quickly touch on how to add back in the skeletons. First and foremost, if you fully sacrificed everything, you won't be able to select the skill, but I'll open up the skill select menu so that you can take a look at it. And down here, you'll notice that Raise Skeleton is grayed out. I cannot select it, and I'm not able to select the Golem either since we're not level 25 yet. But if we go back to the Book of the Dead and I select one or the other enhancement for the skirmishers and go back into my skill selections tab, Raise Skeleton is now an option, and I can put that back onto my skill bar. At this point, I will be able to summon them again. If I had a golem, the golem would automatically summon and then resummon according to its own timer whenever it died. But as you can see, I can now go ahead and consume corpses to summon them again, as well as use the skeletal priest ability to heal them and increase their damage. The last thing that I want to note here inside of this menu is that the Defender skeletons will unlock at level 8 and the Reaper skeletons will unlock at level 12. I will also touch on how soon the Skeletal Mages and the Golems unlock once we have that available. Let me log on to my higher level Necromancer and we can go look at the book in its entirety up to what we can see in the beta. Now that we're on our level 25 Necromancer, the vast majority of the Book of the Dead is available to us. Let's go through the rest of the options that you have. Defender skeletons have a special caveat that they are going to have 15% increased life. Their first enhancement says that every 8 seconds, your skeletal defenders will negate the next instance of direct damage that they would take. This is nice because they'll be able to tank larger hits and potentially survive higher damage from bosses that otherwise your skeletons would not normally be able to survive. The second upgrade for defenders is that they will increase the amount of thorns that they receive from you from 30% to 50%. And at this point, I think it would be good to bring up the fact that all of your summons appear to gain 30% of all of your stats. So your crit chance, your overpower damage, your crit damage, potentially a lot of the other stats that you have as well. We will still need to go through and detail everything that we can test that your skeletons receive, but just assume they're getting a 30% effective value of any of the stats that you add to your character when trying to consider ways of buffing them. Their sacrifice ability says that you gain 15% non-physical resistance, but you can no longer summon Skeletal Warriors. Reapers are a scythe-wielding Skeletal Warrior that have a massive wind-up attack that they do every 10 seconds that deals an additional amount of heavy damage. Their first upgrade says that their attacks against enemies who are either immobilized, slowed, stunned, or currently vulnerable reduce the cooldown of their wind-up attack by 2 seconds. The second enhancement says that they have a 15% chance to generate a corpse whenever they attack a monster, and their sacrifice ability says that you deal 10% increased shadow damage, but you can no longer summon them. For your skeleton mages, you start off right at level 15 with the shadow mage available. The cold mages are going to unlock at level 18, and the bone mages unlock at level 22. Now, before we go into the different types of the skeleton mages, I want to point out that the same skill of Raised Skeleton will be used to summon both your warriors and your mages. And you'll notice that the tooltip now includes the skeleton mages abilities that we have selected from our Book of the Dead. This does mean that depending on how many total skeletons that you have, since there are ways of increasing that via aspects in game, you'll have to spam through and generate more corpses to be able to fully summon the entirety of your army. And then you'll be able to use the Skeletal Priest ability to heal them and increase their damage output. And that same ability works for the skeleton mages as it worked for the skeleton warriors. The shadow skeleton mages are going to wield shadow damage bolts that they'll fire off. The first enhancement says that they have a 10% chance to stun a monster for a length of time. Here it's 2.2 seconds, and that this can't happen to the same enemy more than once every 5 seconds. The second enhancement says that they fire an additional shadow bolt every 6th attack, and if you were to sacrifice your skeleton mages, you would gain a maximum essence of 15, which is the primary resource for the Necromancer. Cold mages apply chill and ultimately freeze to their targets with their attacks. Those are 2 different types of monster CC abilities. Chill looks like they slow you down. Freeze obviously completely stuns you in a freeze animation. The first upgrade here says that each time that a cold mage attacks an enemy, you're actually going to gain 2 essence. The second enhancement here says that enemies who are frozen by or damaged while frozen by your cold mage's primary attacks are made vulnerable for the next 3 seconds, and it doesn't look like there is a cooldown or timer on how often that can apply. So theoretically, your cold mages could permanently apply vulnerable to a monster who has been frozen or becomes frozen by their attacks. The sacrifice ability of the cold mages is that you are going to increase the vulnerable damage that you deal by 15%. Your bone mages are kind of interesting, so just stick with me here a little bit. But the bone mages literally fire their own body parts at monsters as projectiles. They deal a lot of damage, but they eventually will end up killing themselves, so you kind of have to juggle constantly resummoning them or healing them mid-combat to keep up their total damage. The first upgrade says that it will reduce the amount of damage that they deal to themselves from 15% to 10%, so that already tells us that the bone mages are going to deal 15% of their maximum life every single time that they attack, meaning that if you do absolutely nothing to heal them, they're able to attack 7 times before they die. This will reduce it down to 10%, so now they're able to attack 10 times before they die. But after being alive for 5 seconds, they will deal an increase of 40% damage. The second enhancement reads that each time a bone mage dies from its own attack, so not from a monster attacking it, it will leave behind a corpse and fortify you for 11% of your base life. The sacrifice ability of the Bone Mages is that you will increase the overpower damage that you deal by 30%. Last but not least, you have your Golem. Now the Golem does require you to complete a quest, your actual class specialization quest, which you're able to do in the Fractured Peak, and this quest automatically becomes available to you and you're able to track it starting at level 25. Now I already have a video out about how to actually unlock the Golem, so I'll just link to that here. But if you wanted to follow that, or if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend checking it out. Checking out the tooltip for the Golem, you'll see that passively, you summon a Golem. So you don't actually need to proactively summon the Golem or generate a corpse and consume it to be able to summon it. It will just pop back up every 20 seconds after it dies and then automatically respawns. The Golem itself has 659 life at our current level, and it attacks for 35% of our weapon damage, so scaling our weapon damage will increase our Golem's damage. When you activate the skill, similarly to when you activate Raise Skeleton, you get a secondary effect. This one, your Golem will become unstoppable, meaning that no CC effects can apply to it. It will rush to an area that you target and then taunt all enemies in a massive radius around it, forcing them to actually attack the Golem itself as opposed to any other targets. This will also reduce the incoming damage that it takes by 30% for the next 6 seconds. This skill can be used every 16 seconds, which is roughly once a fight. The first enhancement for the Golem says that every time it takes 20% of its maximum life as total damage, it will generate a corpse. And the second enhancement says that the Bone Golem gains 10% additional maximum life, and the amount of thorns that it inherits increases from 30% to 50%. So again, we gain a little bit of insight here, which says that the Golem as well just receives 30% of all of the stats that our Necromancer has, and that similarly to the Defender skeletons, it will gain 50% of thorns as opposed to the base 30%. If you were to sacrifice the Golem, you will gain 10% increased attack speed and no longer be able to summon it. And then the only bits of information that we don't currently have available to it is the level 28 Blood Golem and the level 32 Iron Golem. So look forward to the next video once this information is available. And similarly to the Raised Skeleton, I just want to point out that if you happen to sacrifice your Golem and then you want to use it again, you will first have to reactivate one of the 2 enhancement slots and then reselect the skill down onto your skill bar from the skill selectment screen available from your skill tree screen. So that's everything that we currently know about the Book of the Dead. I hope that this goes a long way just to clear up any information that you were hoping to receive about how it works, the different stats, and what you can expect from your skeletons and your Golem friends. In game, there are already a lot of aspects that either increase how many skeletons you can have, increase the amount of damage that they deal over a given time, and a lot of different abilities that actually synergize with your summons. And then very quickly in the skill tree, there are a couple things that I wanted to touch on, namely the skill nodes that will actually apply to your summons. So the first node is Skeletal Warrior Mastery, ultimately increasing the damage and life by 45%. If you put 3 skill points into it. Skeletal Mage Mastery similarly works for your Skeletal Mages and similarly increases damage and life by 45%. Golem Mastery in your ultimate passive node, which does the same thing, but for the Golem. And then you actually have 4 different abilities that all scale your damage on your summons. Inspiring Leader, which will increase the attack speed of your minions. Bonded in Essence, which will increase how much healing the Skeletal Priest ability does to your summons. Death's Defense, which just reduces the total amount of the maximum life that any of your summons can lose in a single attack. And then Hellbent Commander, which is just a straight up increase in damage to your minions when you are within melee range of them. Bone Storm, the ultimate, also applies to your Golem, so you will actually have 2 storms up if you have a Golem summoned. Army of the Dead ultimately will respawn your Skeletal Warriors and Skeletal Mages when you use it with this enhancement. You do gain additional benefits from certain skills when you either do or do not have minions active. So here, Standalone will increase your damage reduction and will decrease it for each minion that you have. And then Memento Mori reads that the sacrifice bonuses for your Skeletal Mages and Warriors will be increased if you sacrifice both of them. And then there are some simple things here where Decompose will actually increase the amount of damage that you deal and your minions deal. Supernatural Blight will increase the amount of damage that your minions deal when Blight is on them. And then Sever will deal increased damage for each summon that you have active when you use it. I do hope that this helps just shed some light again on the diversity of things that will apply to your summons, how the Book of the Dead itself works, and again, once we have more information specifically relating to the different types of golems and we have the full picture, I will be putting out another video. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it helped, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.